There's no Atman or person that exists independently, apart from which exists independently or isolated from spiritual or physical meeting. So, in other way, a person exists depending on the meeting. So, in this world, amongst the objects that exist outside, whether trees, stones, or animals, or all sentient beings that go through six samsaras, there is no being which exists independently. So there is nothing that exists independently in this world which does not rely on anything else. Even if that is, whether it is the God, which we also refer as a creator, or gods in the heaven, whether it doesn't really matter. But something that exists without depending on each other, or there's also nothing that can exist forever. And also there's nothing that doesn't change during its existence. And also there is nothing that has a supreme power to say and also a lot of things in all other things or things that exist in this external world, not only this universe but even the dust, which is like thousands and millions of distance apart, there's nothing that exists in this world which is not related to me. Everything is connected to us. It is only it's close to us, or it is far from us, or whether it has more effect or less effect. But there's nothing that can exist independently, and even myself, although you feel like there's something that exists independently in a spiritual manner, but even this, it arises connected to us, and it also disappears in relation to us, but there's nothing that exists independently. If you believe that there is something that's been created and and other things exist in a special manner, with that kind of thought, then you'd also feel that some human beings are special and some human beings are not common. Some human beings are common, and then the philosophy itself bears of the discrimination. And so, in terms of the regulations or how it's being formulated, all the things that has been created in this world, they are not those things that exist as per its convenience. Even Einstein's law of relativity it's not like the law of relativity is applied to some particular or special beings, but it isn't so. And even the evolution, or whether it is animals or plants, they are also affected by the evolution. So in this world, there's no being that can be referred as something special, which has a specialty. Because if there's a specialty, then some beings should live forever and should not die. But in Buddhism, they never accept that there is a being, there is a special being. And also, a Buddha is just a common human being, and but he's a human being in whom the essential parts of all human beings have been developed. And so it is not mentioned anywhere in the Buddhist script that he was a special being. And also he never said that, come to me, I'm going to give you blessing in the world. Buddha has never said he will cure every people or everyone's worries. Buddha said he will teach how to cure all the worries. They are all different things. Even in Buddhism, some people believe that they would want to be the head of the religion and they would try to do something for everyone. And so so if there's anyone who has a poor sense of discrimination or judgment, then they will be fooled by it and they are also being cheated by it. But that's a great lie. No one can do that. And as per the method, well, we can say things like, well, I've gone through this and this is clear. But outside that, no one can actually comment anything on it. So everything is done by themselves, and the karma should also be accepted by them. And also there's nothing that can be done by anyone else, and even the death or karmas or the hunger or anything else, if anyone can suffer on your behalf, then well, because of your less virtue, because you are not virtuous, and if you're poor, then no one can do anything for you. To say if you're very unlucky, but if you want to, but if you're unlucky and if someone gives you money, then because of your unluckiness, you would also become poor. Without opening the spiritual ability for the person to build his or her own power, you cannot rescue them from their unluckiness. So if you have given your unlucky son like $10 million, that you're just killing him. You have brought him up in a less virtuous way, like lazy, and he's self-centered. He doesn't try to help others. And he also doesn't try to do any charity work. He doesn't try to work hard to survive. But if you give money to the person, what kind of help is that? You're just ruining him. You're ruining that person. In my opinion, I think it's proper to kick that kind of children sooner, and the person should live as per his wish or desire. I think that's way better. So, so in this world, everyone exists depending on each other. A human, even the spiritual effect or mental effect, it is also arising in dependence to the reaction between the body and the spiritual power. But people usually comment about it as two individual beings or two independent things. But that is done in order to explain how they work. But it is not actually so. Some people say even if your body is unhealthy, if your spirit is healthy, if your body is healthy, it's okay. But it is not so. If you have drunk and if you cannot control your body, but if can your spirit be healthy? If we close our eyes, if we lose our eyes, then well, we actually intake 80% of information with our eyes. And so if we lose our eyes, then we lose about 80% of knowledge or information intake. And so our concept or our power of knowledge becomes very weak, and so it's very important to be healthy. If we don't have eyes, and then we cannot distinguish, or we cannot separate objects or people in terms of color, and we call that disability. And as we grow older, we also grow our disabilities. We feel that it's actually broadening, but it is actually lessening because we lose our senses. But if we are able to make full use of things that we have experienced before, if we don't have the strength, then our life would be very dark and also insecure, and we would also go through a lot of difficulties. As we grow older, our consciousness or our intake would also reduce, because our perceptions would also reduce a lot, and so the information intake that we can do lessens a lot. And so the reason why we say aging is a difficult thing is because all the senses that we intake becomes less, and also our body parts that with which we can intake all the senses become weaker, so it is difficult. So a human being exists depending on the meeting. So me, myself, or there's no Atman, and also there's no human being to say. They are all formed by the relations. They're just beings that's been created by the phenomenon, and so since they're created not too far away, that they are going to disappear. We don't even know when they will disappear. Sometimes a relation ends as we age, but at times when we have things like heart attack, then it just ends in an abrupt manner. So sometimes we have misunderstanding. We have misunderstanding, and we also make a lot of mistakes, and so we have developed computer in order not to make mistakes, because human beings, we are prone to making mistakes. Because there are too many misunderstandings and mistakes, we have created computer. Can you please give me some cold water? We can know this when we study our daily habit. If our body and other meetings are young, we say the person is young, and if they age, we say they are old. And such common explanation shows the reality of people who live in dependence to the meeting. So when we say old or young, the explanation itself we are saying that after reviewing the phenomenon of change, if there is anything that doesn't change, that there's no need for us to comment whether it's old or young. So even you, when you study carefully, such a situation itself, whether you are young or whether you are old, when you study this now, tell us if there's anything that hasn't changed but has been kept so far. You cannot even say your opinions hasn't changed. Even your opinions have been changing so far. There's nothing that hasn't changed. Even sleeplessness or phenomenon is also a practice of the source. If we to tell in easy way, a dharma is 5 skandhas and 12 ayatanas and 18 dhatus. The skandhas, ayatanas, and dhatus, all these physical or material things in the unsurpassed and profound level, they are not very different from the concept of the heart. We can divide them as a particles, and if we divide or analyze the particle itself, then we cannot get any personality or characters. However, we still are obsessed with things, including the materials, although they don't really exist. Please adjust the fan. In Pranya Paramita, about the 5 skandhas is they talk about the absence of self. If you check if there's I, then actually there's no I over there, because everything comes and goes with the relations. If there's anything that doesn't change, then we cannot say a person is dead. Then even after that, if there's nothing that doesn't change, then we can just get someone and call that person as mother. In America, I heard that they also have that kind of business. In the body, we have carbon. They reduce the carbon and they make the fake diamond and they hang it around your neck. I heard that business makes a lot of great profit. Well, even that's a very weird or different business. So, absence of self, even if you study the essential part of it, and if we say there is no person as I, then as a conclusion, what kind of result does it arise? It makes that the obsession for myself disappears. What are you going to be obsessed at? You mean beauty? The beauty doesn't last more than 3 years. Not to mention about someone who was ugly from the beginning. Have you ever mistaken yourself as handsome? Well, it seems like you did, because you're not refusing. What about you? Have you ever thought that you're good looking since you're a child? Well, no, I think you did. There were times where you stood in front of mirror, right? So it's only a momentary. That too, it's a misunderstanding. It doesn't have like much meaning. So if you apply that a little to our reality, so if you get a pretty wife, that it lasts for 3 years, and after 3 years, it's almost the same. And a wife who cooks well, then it lasts forever. And I have made a new invention myself. If you meet a wife who is rich, then they also do offering even after death. So, handsome, good looking. They say young Kibi doesn't even have her bones left. You don't even know what's good looking. So I'm going to give you a homework. Something that doesn't change and something that lasts forever. And is there anything that you, by having your attachment or obsession, can you make it last forever? Money, power, beauty, husband, your children? There's nothing. The saying that everything comes and goes with the relation, this is really the right saying. Even our body, it comes and goes with our relations. What more do we have other than that? Well, if you're hungry, you can eat some of it. There isn't anything. So us, this obsession, this sense, this voidness, if everything comes and goes with the relation, and if we observe the content which is not going to last forever, then why would we have obsession with anything or do plastic surgery? Well, it seems like there's no one who has obsession of the source here. Everyone has like a flat nose, and it seems like there's no one who's obsessed with beauty here. It's all misunderstanding. Well, someone once said, if you have a lot of power or if you're in high position, then it's good. But then it's only difficult to come down. Well, after a president is done with his tenure, well, there is a security that follows throughout his life. Well, it's a good to say and it's a good to hear, but even the security are people, and so if you have to move around with people all the time, then it's almost like you have a great lump around with you. It's also difficult for you to go around with your husband as a lump, right? It's even difficult to have your husband. But nowadays, no matter how much your grandson is cute, you're very happy when they come, but you are even happier when they go. So if your grandchildren is with you for about like 10 days, then you become so tired that you even get blisters. You have to buy them something, and sometimes they break off all the things in the house, or they cry if they don't like. And also, if you don't take good care of them, then your daughter comes and complains that you didn't take good care of them. So if you take good care of them, they take it for granted. But if you don't take good care of them, then they complain. Isn't it so? It's a reality. So it is not something that really brings joy, but you're doing it inevitably. Well, if someone comes and says, or someone came and said, "Can you please name someone?" And when I said, "Do you have a child?" she said, "No, I'm already 60 years old. It's for my grandchildren." She was very happy that she has a grandson from her son. She was very happy and found her grandson to be so cute. But then I felt that not long after you feel very sad, and sometimes you'll be even happier that they go home soon. That's the reality. So while living with our dharma or karma, if we meet and well, even in our human life, we come and we meet so many different relations. Even your children, when they pass their puberty, they're going to go on with their life. They will only come to you if they need money. After puberty, they will not even come to you. And also, if your child stays with you after 30, the child is only going to be with you because of money. You should kick them off soon. But it was on the news, Obama's daughter, after she became an adult, the parents do not have to send them to their school, and also they don't have to say them goodbye, send them off to school. But then before, it causes problem if they don't do that. And children also accept that they have reached the age. But for us, even if they go to school, they're going to school, they're mama boys, college, even if they're at work, or even after they get married, they're still mama boys or papa boys. That is not right. So kick them out, and even if they fight, you should just ignore and let them deal with themselves. And if they have some boxing happening, then maybe just give them a mat or the ring on which they can fight. So the absence of self, so if you study the absence of self in detail, you're actually distancing yourself from those which causes suffering to you, especially mothers. Well, those of you who are here, that you are already aged, so you know that you have been fooled. So you already know that you have been fooled by your children before. Well, it seems like some of you don't even know still. All of you have been fooled. And so now, you should just let them go. The absence of self, all the relations that surrounded me, is going to disperse. Nothing would last which we can still call as ourselves. Nothing will be left. If we study that way, then there is nothing for us to have attachment. What are you going to have attachments for? So having the attachment is the greediness, and because of that you have your own suffering. And the selflessness of phenomenon, you have two concepts. You have two observations. First one is the objects of your target. So there are two targets. The first one is the object of the phenomenon, and the second one is the target of spiritual target. So the phenomenon target, because there's something that exists outside of you. So if you say at home, if you say, well, I went through great difficulty building this house, or my land, my country, or my diamonds, although I have obsessions for them, but if you study them in detail, then even my house is just trees and bricks, a mixture of them, and it's just an object that has been built in relation to my dharma, but they are not something that I need to have my obsession for. And even your children, and also even our country. When you ask what is your country, well, in a sociological manner, they have explained the land, the people, but even them, if you study them in detail, they don't really have its true form. So therefore, in this world, they don't have a form for anything, and so because there shouldn't be anything that causes you great suffering because of your obsession. And as a spiritual way, what is it? Even the philosophy that we say, the philosophy of the socialism, it's already a lie that's been proven that the socialism can cause heaven in our country, but also it's also a great failure that the capitalism can bring greater happiness. It has been proven already. The end of the capitalism, some scientists or some researchers, they also go on saying that the result of the final end of the end for the capitalism would be like a threshold. So in order to apply a theory, we have shed a lot of blood and tears, but itself has not given us a conclusion or any solution. Well, maybe they have given a partial explanation to something. Well, capitalism has proven something. They have given solution for food, but that has created a greater poverty. It does not It did not give the answer to share. It has caused another level of death. There are things which gets resolved when we throw away our greediness, but instead they have kind of formulated society that we try more greediness, and so that is not a solution. And also, in a religious manner, we believe in absolute God because we also try for our mental freedom, but we don't even know if there's a God that exists. It's just we believe. We know that there is an absolute God. There is absolute God called Allah, or is this God, that God. They're all the same, but everyone says they're different. And also in India, there is an absolute God called Brahmin. There are God of destruction, Mother God, Father God, and also God of creation, but there is no single evidence that proves that these gods existed before. On those objects, by having our obsessions, we commit so much murder and also crimes. Why is that so? Because the concept itself is wrong. Buddhism, we never say any of these are correct. We don't believe that there's a God, absolute creator, and so even in a material way, the objects are absent, and also in a spiritual way, they're also absent. And so we say there are absence of self and also absence of phenomena. If we don't feel that, if we don't do that properly, then with the obsession for myself, and by looking for the objects, or people of now society, they believe the materials will last forever. I will earn a lot of money and I put in the savings. I'll tell you something funny. You say the banks are safe, but the bank people are all cheaters. They're not clean. If they want to earn money, then they should earn money. But with the money that other people have saved, they're doing fundings with it. It's just that you give fish to the cat. They say they will earn money for you if you invest somewhere. Why don't you ask them to invest themselves? They're also doing it in order to earn money themselves. They're not doing anything else. So the means to resolve it. The objects of all your desire, you have to let them go. And by not having obsession in any of them, and by not being greedy to any of them, and living your life that way, we say that that's the life of utopia. Utopian way of life. What is it? People who succeeded with knife, they also fail with knife, and also people who has succeeded with well, I think that's a little wrong. People who achieve success with money, they achieve success. Well, I think that's wrong. You live your life as per the relations, and so there's no absolutity in any objects. Tell me if you know anything that has its own absolutism in any objects. What cannot change and what does not change and what lasts forever? Buddha? Well, Buddha is not an absolute being. If Buddha is an absolute being, I would not even believe in Buddha. Buddha has shown that there is nothing that's absolute in our lives, and so the thing that provides us the most comfort, we call him Buddha, who does not have obsession to anything, because they already know that nothing is absolute in our life. Everything comes and goes with the relations. If you have obsessions to your hair, then each time you comb your hair, then you should cry a lot, because each time you comb your hair, like your hair should fall, and you should cry because something so precious has fallen down. People who has become bald, they say no matter how much wear their wigs, and even if they plan their hair, but then if you change the way of thinking, where they're going to fall off after some time. Where when new burn occurs after death, then the hair burns the fastest. Whether they disappear later or now, well, those things which has relation, they're going to stay, and those whose relation has ended, they're going to go off. So each time you comb your hair, just think that the relation with the hair has gone off. You have done a great job sticking to my hair so far. I also spend a lot of money shampooing you, and that way you should let it go. We don't cry while we blow our nose. We feel that we feel very refreshed. But then, about money that has not been produced from my body, if you lose them, you sit and you cry. Well, they're actually nothing better than your mucus. So in Prajna Paramita, the thing that we so-called yourself, it doesn't last forever too. And what is the use even talking about objects? So starting from me, because we are formed with the relations, so there's no special way to come and go. But instead, when the relation ends, we depart, and when there is a relation happening, then we meet. With the relation, we form again, and if there is no relation, we say goodbye. Isn't it so? Or simply you really don't want to answer. Inevitably, you're lying. So even though objects, whether house, money, or stones, all of them, because of the development of technology, when you analyze them, it's just going to end in plus and minus. There's nothing that doesn't change in its being. In Abhidharma Kosa Shastra, they have also shown that as a molecule you can break off everything, and so there is nothing that lasts forever. So at which one or at what are you going to have your attachments for? So we say we have achieved the Virojana. And what is attaining Virojana? Or to say, what is Dharmakaya? That says we have understood that everything is void, and so even if we say a speech, even if we make a speech, we do not have any speech that has any attachments. And even when we have something as our property, we know that they are not going to last forever, so we do not have any attachments. And we say we have achieved the Dharma body. So they're going to break off in very minute particles, and even in these very minute particles, when you analyze them, you cannot find their original personality. So even when we break down a glass or stones, if we break down in the molecular form, then we cannot find the property that we can call as a glass. Because of the Dharma and also relation, it has been formed, and it's a phenomena. And therefore, as a particle, you cannot say they last forever, and that's why and so it's same as you are trying to break off something that is invalid, and it's as if they last in dreams, and so you have to know that there is no particular form as such. So this story, I have said this many times, but let's look at it one more time. Well, if I say I have seen this handkerchief, and by looking at the handkerchief, and I have the feeling that it is a handkerchief, then in my heart, does it mean that this handkerchief has entered into my heart? I'm seeing it as in the light, and in the image, I have created the word that is a handkerchief in my mind. And if I let the handkerchief disappear in front of my eyes and let it go, does it mean that the handkerchief exists in my head? Well, it doesn't. It's just my opinion. And so if we say it's a handkerchief, for me, the handkerchief itself, it is just inside my head. But the thing that created the thought, is it me or is it the handkerchief? It's my thoughts, and so it's mine. So when you say we have seen our husband, it's actually all us. When we feel that our husband is ugly, does it mean that your husband is really ugly, or is it because the guideline or the standard in your mind says your husband is ugly, so it's you? Then is it bad that your husband is ugly, or is it bad that you have raised those kind of thoughts? Well, it's a very heartbreaking story. Your husband is not able to earn money, and so you feel angry. But when you see them as two different beings, you are angry because your husband is not earning money. Well, it's a hurt that's been created from you. But maybe your husband is not angry at all. Why is that so? Because you have seen it that way, but your husband has not seen it that way. Your husband is spending a great time relaxing around with the money that his wife has brought to house, isn't it? So when you are listening to a speech, and by listening, and even if we say great many things or bad things about Buddha, well, that's something that the person has done it, but it's not related to me. If we say that, then the story that we have said is not something that I've said. But after listening to it, if our heart is in discomfort, then it becomes my story, because we put ourselves in that position. And so what normally happens? We feel that, well, my husband is ugly, he's not able to earn money, he's very short, this and that. Well, if you look at it in the other way, it means you want your husband to be tall and bring a lot of money to a house, and you want your husband to be handsome as a Richard Gere. But if the person is so handsome like a Richard Gere, why would the person live with you? Well, Richard Gere is older to me, but he was wearing jeans, and when I saw him, it looked like he's only about 40 something years old, but he has a naturally white hair, and even when he was walking, but when you see Shin Sang-il, you can see an ugly side of him, but for him you don't see anything. But he was just a very nice gentleman. So as a bodhisattvas, because our heart itself is bodhisattva, they see all other beings as bodhisattvas. But no matter how much we try to look, we don't see any bodhisattvas. No matter how much we try to see, we don't see bodhisattvas, but we only see ourselves. So the whole world that they see is ourselves. So even today, after rain, the birds are chirping, I feel very happy. So it's actually you who is feeling very happy, but it's not the bird who is happy. Today the crow is crying, and so you feel very uncomfortable. But it is not you, but it is actually you who feel uncomfortable. So is the bird crying or laughing or singing? Where a bird is not even crying, is not even laughing. The person who is listening is actually your story. You feel that the bird is singing. That person, then the person was happy the previous day, and if you feel unhappy, it's well, you have some problem with your husband. It's very noisy. That's because your heart is very noisy. After you chase the bird away, even the sound of the leaves, you feel they're very noisy. When you say we are looking at the object, where all the object is a heart that you have raised, well, your heart as the thing that you feel is out of your own heart, and so and also when you see elders and you say hello, you feel that you are saying hello looking at others. But actually, when you say hello, you are saying hello from your side. If you say hello in a proper way, then you yourself will gain virtue, but not the one who is receiving from it. So after seeing an old person and after acknowledging that the person is old, you wanted to say hello to the person, and so the person is moral and the person also has respect, and so you yourself is happy. So everything is a result of your own sayings. So everything that we do now is our own actions, but it is not action of anyone else. Isn't it? So in Abhidharmas, even in Abhidharmas is mentioned, so all of you looking at the mirror is to look at yourself. It is not to look at the mirror. All of you looking at the object is not to look at the object, but to look at how our heart reaction is to look at our heart. It is to look at the heart's reaction. So the thing that we do now, Buddha, he said all sentient beings will become Buddha, and he said that because for him he sees everyone as Buddhas. He said everyone can become Buddhas. Rather than say everyone will become Buddha, he saw everyone as Buddhas. It's just that we are in our dreams, but everyone is Buddha. Why is it so? He said that because he is Buddha. About us, we have only one evidence that we are not Buddhas. We say not everyone is Buddhas. But all of you have studied so far, so you see everyone as bodhisattvas, right? Did you answer to me knowing what I imply? So those good people, they see the world as good people. It's not that they don't know about evilness and see the world as world in goodness, but they see the world as in goodness because they themselves are good people. So here, the things that we hear and see now has been all created from our mind. You have to know that there is all creation of our mind. If you say you're angry because your son doesn't study, that's your anger. That is not the anger of your son. If you feel you're very happy because your son studies very well, that means your desire has been fulfilled. You don't even care if your son is happy. Well, before a bodhisattva came to me, someone came to me and seemed like the person has a very broad mind, and she said, "My son is very bad at studies." And I said, only being good at maths, Korean, and other things are good at studies. And she said, "No, it is not so. My son doesn't even go to school." Well, I said, a person with a normal mindset, I wouldn't go to school, even nowadays, school, if they have a proper concept. They only make you memorize, there's no PT, and also at schools in olden times, we also had we did many other extracurricular activities like cooking and also like hammering. And if it was me, I would also ask, why would I have to go to such school? Because they only make you memorize a lot of things. Well, since it's children, they just go to school, but we need to be grateful to them that they go to such schools. And it's very normal that your son doesn't go to school. Do you know what she said? What will my son become if he doesn't go to school? And I said, the person who even graduated from Seoul National University is ruining our country. Well, even people who have been graduated from Seoul National University, they have not even gotten a Nobel Prize. They fight and they have caused a lot of problems. Even the prosecutor, lawyer, minister, and judge, they are all from Seoul National University, and they fight themselves. And people who doesn't even have money, they go to lawyer, and lawyer has been beaten by, well, so many stories. Even if it was me, I wouldn't go to such school. And so she asked me, where should I send? And I told her that the best school is society, and so please find a place where that person or your son can work. Well, living is studying. Living is studying. If you study such things, well, in Jiri Mountain, the boy named Okari, they don't ukulele. They didn't. The parents didn't send them to school, and he performed here, and he was really, really, really good at playing ukulele, and his mindset was also very proper. The schools now, what we say, the special schools or high schools or middle schools, his idea was even better than the students who go to those schools. And I talked to him shortly, and his ideas was so well, and he was just a healthy Korean boy. And even about the plants, he knew very well about them. And he asked me, "Do you know how the weeds they sing?" And normally you don't really notice that the plant, and he said he also saw the white man's food. He said normally you don't really notice the plant because it's very insignificant, but he saw the seeds there, and it seemed like they were playing, and he made a song for the white man's food. And those students who graduate from Seoul University, they don't really know about them. They only know how to fight. Well, as for me, my mother and my grandfather, although they were illiterate, they lived their life in a very good manner, and they passed away. In that society, during the time, there were not even so many prisons like nowadays. Nowadays, we have so many prisons, and also there are so 10s and 20s, about 50,000 people who are in the prison. They lived a good life in olden times. They had sons and daughters. Where nowadays, students who graduate from university, they are so they don't know well, and so when when the child is not when the child has fever, they run to emergency. Well, where were we talking? And you have to know that such conditions only, such things are only from the mind. Well, now we have table and we have everything here, but the dimension but the world that we acknowledge is only this. And also you have to know that it is only in the heart. So whether you take or whether you intake your husband as someone insignificant or someone who is not proper, well, maybe your husband is no one better than someone living in a farm, but it's also up to you if you look upon your husband. Well, I saw on TV and she was talking that there is no one who lives a better life than my husband. And when I saw her, I realized that she was talking in a very pretty manner. And when I saw the husband, the grandfather, well, he didn't look or like he wasn't that great looking. But when she was cutting his hair, she was like, how can you let the person working in the barber shop to work on his hair? And she cut it himself. She cut it herself, but she was cutting it in any way she likes. And during the interview, he said, there is no one who cuts hair better than my wife. Well, for him, she was better than someone working in a high fancy salon. So look how pretty is the mind or the heart of the grandmother. Even if it's obsession, if you're living in this common labor, you have to live in that way. But instead, if you live your life blaming your husband or thinking your husband is not good enough, then it only breaks your heart. So why do you do things that breaks your heart? Before, one husband would always sing after drinking and come home. And the grandmother would get irritated. But she said when the husband comes home singing, she found him cute. He doesn't even know how to sing, and normally when he's not even drunk, he doesn't even open his mouth, so that it doesn't even open his mouth. But when he gets drunk, he keeps singing the same song, and she found that very cute. And she said when he does something like that, she finds him very cute. So it all depends on you. So it's not that you're looking at the object, but you're looking at the mind that is created. And you have to see what kind of mindset arises. And that is you. So bodhisattvas think that while looking at all sentient beings, she thinks that they are their parents throughout their many lives. Bodhisattva thinks like that. Before, I spoke about this to one gentleman, And he said, well, it's very difficult to practice that. And I said, of course, it's very difficult. And he asked, why is it difficult? And I said, you're not yet a bodhisattva. That's why it is difficult. And he was like, is it so? But then why, when I think about it, when I look at other people thinking they're my mother, he said he hopes that those ugly people are not his mother.
지금 내가 지금 생각하고 있는 내가 지금 일으키는 이것은 대상이 아니고
So now the things that you think, the mindset that is created inside of you, so it is not the phenomenon that happens inside of them, but it's actually your heart, it's your feeling. So creating a hell or even making a heaven, it all depends on you. You do not go somewhere else because that happens or this happens.
그래서 나를 들여다보고 산다는 것은 나를 들여다보고 산다는 것은
So
일어나는 것을 들여다보고
when we say we are looking at ourselves, that means we are actually looking at what kind of mindset is created inside of us, and we live our life. And so, if we have a heart or mind that's like a bodhisattva, then we are living our life like a bodhisattva, or else we are just living our life like a common people. And if only if you have that kind of mindset, you are in the heaven. That's why in the Adamkara Sutra is written that in this world you have to study the personality or characteristics that exist in this world. Depending on what's being created in your heart, you see. So whether if you are very proud of yourself or if you are filled with ego, then whatever the other people say, you feel it disturbs you. So if when they say something, although they are saying it for your own good, you don't intake as something that's good. That's because how you feel about it. It is not the words play. So you should try to look at your heart and try to fix it. It is also there in the way to Bodhisattva.
내 발바닥만 하나 가지고 대면 된다.
You don't have to cover the whole world with leather. You only have to cover your feet.
깔아놓고 돌아다닐 필요 없이 내 발바닥 여기만
There is no need to cover the whole mountain that you walk around with leather. But if you only put leather on beneath, on your foot, on your 2 feet, then it makes everything look like you have covered the whole mountain with leather. But a foolish person would try to cover the whole mountain with leather. But someone who is intelligent, they would only try to cover their feet.
알겠죠?
You understand?
대상을 듣고 보고 하면서 맛보고
So in my heart, while looking and while studying the people, if you have greatness that's arising from your heart, then it already shows that you're not someone who is studying the Buddhism. If you have 1 million, what will you do with 1 million?
그럼 1억 1천만 원 어디다 네? 아이고 그러니까 생각이 딱 대상을 딱 보면서 대상에 대한 욕망이 딱 일어나 버리면
So while looking at the object, if you have greediness or if you have anger,
은행직을 갖다
then while looking at that, you tend to think wrong things.
현금 뭐 지급기
Well, it's been said that the thieves, they do the ATMs, when they try to take money out from the ATM,
그 현금 지급기를 보고서
they normally steal money by pressing some buttons there. And looking at the ATM, if you have that kind of thought first, then you're a thief.
빵 생각이 먼저 나면 그건 식충이지.
But while looking at the ATM, if you think about bread, then you are someone who is a food lover. If you think about ATM, if you look at ATM and think about food, then you're a food lover. But then if you think about hair salons, then maybe that person is a fashionista.
현금 지급기를 내가 잘 몰라. 그래서 저게 뭐 자동 지급기 뭐 그런 나왔더라고. 저 보면서 저게 자동으로 좀 빠지네.
I don't know very well about ATMs, and when I was passing by, I saw something written like it's automatic, and well, I thought it is not automatic because I don't even have a credit card, and I thought, if I have about 1 million out of it automatically, then I wanted to build a school in Nepal. If I have like 3 million out of it automatically, then maybe I could have built
교육을 받을 건데 그 정도의 뭐
some schools over there.
글쎄 말이야 저쪽에 저
That's what I thought when I saw the ATM. Well, in some places where in places like Seoul, like 3 million, it is not worth so much. When I pass by, sometimes it occurs to me those kind of thoughts. Well, there's a bank. Well, but that doesn't mean I can go and rob something.
요즘에는 이제 그게 화두가 돼버렸어.
I only think, it will be great if I can build a school there. Nowadays, that has become the point of my concentration. When I see a computer, then I think like, I wish I could give some. I can give some computer in Nepal, but nowadays.
썰렁개그 같지만 생각이 난다니까.
When I get Kakao Talk, when I get some notice message, then I think about Nepal. So before, I went to Sane Banjam and ate mandu dumpling, and I thought about Nepal too. Well, this is not a joke. This happens in reality. So Kathmandu, Kunmandu, Chimandu, it's all rhyming, and I told a person who I was eating with, I said, it reminds me of Kathmandu, and if you say nay, it reminds me of Nepal. It occurs to me out of nowhere.
그렇게 생각이 좀 나면 좋겠더라고. 그래서 요즘에는 이제 그 생각에 빠져서 살아요.
I thought it would be great if you could also do the same. Nowadays, I live my life thinking about them.
그렇게 마음이라 나라. 그게 내 모습이야.
Well, even that, that's the mind, that's the hurt that I have created while looking at it. So there is me. There is a mind that I have created. And the behavior that's out of it, that's the behavior that I have created looking at it. Normally, when you sit and talk, normally the topic of the conversation is the same. My boy went to this school and the result is this and that, and tonight for the soup I'm going to cook this or that. clothes are cheaper in such a place, and that if
그 사람 생각하는 게 카메라 화면에
if we have developed a good camera, and if we try to take something and all the things that person think, if we can come to know from the camera, I think it will be very embarrassing. Out of nowhere, you think about mandu, and while lying down, you think about like hitting someone.
잘 안 보여서 다행이지 말이야. 그 더러운 생각들이 다 보인다 그러면
Where thoughts are, it's fortunate that we cannot see people's thoughts so much. But if we can see everything so well, then it will be quite embarrassing. So nowadays, a lie detector doesn't work well. It's a great fortune. But then in future, I think the lie detector would develop so much, and we can even see how the other person thinks. So you should not lie.
아니 그러니까 범죄를 잡는 데 쓰고 이제 그리고 이제 수행자도 엉터리 수행자
So you should use it to catch criminals and also practitioners who doesn't practice well. If you reflect them, then well, it happened before in Tibet. One saint tried to go some other place to study, and in some place, was a father or someone who died, and so the head monk and the boy monk came to recite mantra, and at the time the traveler could see, and the person could see what they were thinking about. And when the head monk was reciting mantra, the head monk was thinking, are they going to give us the white cow or black cow? So the person was only thinking about things that they would receive in return for the mantra. And the boy and the young monk was reciting mantra, but he was not a skillful monk. And so the monk who was looking at them, he concentrated, and he also tried to send them to the right place, and he went on his path. So if you don't think properly, or if you don't have the proper thoughts, instead think, how much are they going to donate to me, and is she going to come to studies? Well, I think she would not come to studies. Are you going to come all the time? See, look at the way she doesn't answer. So if we develop that sort of camera, it will be very interesting. And also, by looking at the believers, when I tell the believers, do not pray, do not expect some prayer which only prays for your own virtue. You say yes, but instead, if you just sit and pray that I hope I earn a lot of money, I hope this something good will happen. Although in your recitation you say yes, but instead, if you're thinking about money, your children, fame, health, then where we say they are recitation that is worthless. If you only think about money and other things in your head, then actually your brain and your mouth, they are thinking about two different things. That too, if you have the camera that reflects if you're doing the right thing or if you're reciting the wrong things, well, we could come to know, and I think that could be quite fun.
그렇게 이러한 법의 현상을 분석하여 일체가 마음뿐이라는 것을 알고 이들 각각을 분석하는 것은 모두 법의 본성.
By analyzing the phenomena of such prayer, we have to analyze property of all these different things, and only if we double check how our mind is raised, we would know. Knowing that the teaching is void
알고서 말이죠.
or dharma is void,
그래서 잘 보면 전부 다 지금 이렇게
by knowing properly, with knowing properly that all the things that we see is a reflection of our heart, and with our mind, a society or a world is formulated, and so the world is different for each human being. So if we have evil mindset, then the world would become evil. But if the person thinks good things, then the world would become good and it will become heaven. And if the person thinks about throwing away all the obsession and doing good for other beings, it will become the world of bodhisattvas. And also by cutting down all the agni, and if the person can study this world, then this world becomes the world of Buddha. So everything happens with the mind that we have created and formulated in our heart. So we have to do it ourselves. No one can do anything for you.
알겠죠? 이게 이제 임무하로는 나라는
You understand?
내가 집착을 일으키고 그리고 욕심을
In the absence of self, while we study ourselves, and when we have obsessions, and when we have greediness, and the more we have obsession for ourselves, we would enter into hell, because everything comes and goes with the relations. And if we have realized that, then even in front of death, there will be no much difficulties. And also, they don't disappear. Even if they don't disappear, even if we try so much. Why is it so? Because that's the law of how the world goes. So no matter how much this world is going to disappear after certain years and disappear, and even I try to save this world now. Even if I try to save this world with doing so many things, this would not change anything, because you are getting closer to sun, and if you get too close to sun, then whether it is stone or whatever it is, everything is going to disappear. Right now we are living in an appropriate temperature and humidity, and because of that we can sit and we can talk about many different things, but if the situation changes, then even if God comes to rescue our world, we cannot change anything.
이런 어떻게 나 좀 못 알아들었어.
Well, I didn't understand.
No, 그건 그렇게 한 게 아니라 이게 지금 만약에 어떤 그 업에 의해서
Well,
불행한 상황이 벌어졌다 손 치더라도 대상이
if
그 업을
due to karma, even if we have something unfortunate happening because of karma,
그런 조건에 의해서
we are not asking you not to look at the karma.
그것은 또
With that relation, with that situation, if you had that kind of result, then there's also a room for improvement. So you should not just take that as suffering
고통을 당한다라고 했을 때
or source of suffering. So if you say, if someone went to prison and is suffering,
또 벗어나게 만들
well, that is also the hell that's been created by you. And
의미지만은 또
but it is also our responsibility to save the person from that suffering.
들어왔으니까 잘
But even with the karma, if you
그대 업에 의해서 그렇게 되어졌으니까 그 업을 갖다
it is not right to say, oh well, it's a great job that you came to prison and you should just live happily. That is the wrong thing. You have to think that well, that sort of karma happened to the person, but this is the way to save it. You have to try to save it or try to improve the karma.
그런 사람이건 저런 사람이건
Why is it so? But but the condition
가지면은 보살도 될 수 있고
is given
그대가 이만 빠질 것은
that whether it is that kind of person or this kind of person, that person can always become Buddha at some point of time.
5월 12초 18개는 이게 또
You have to know that such kind of precondition is given.
12초는
And also 5 skandhas and 12 ayatanas and 18 dhatus.
안개 이게 식으로 전부 다 이제 그 6가지
You know about those
그것도 뭐 7번째 분별 8번째 아리아식
the 5 skandhas,
지금 얘기하는 것은 70가
the Rupa, Vedana, Sana, Sankara, and Vinana. And also
요 이 이외에 그 어떤 것도 사실은 존재하지 않는다. 나의 세계라는 이렇게 보는 것이다.
and also the 12 senses field or the 12 ayatanas, you know them too, right? The 6 internal bases or the 6 external bases that we say object senses. Well, we only talk about them, so we are going to end today's teaching here.